Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Brian. I'm the host of the Left of Greg show. You're going to be watching the video version of our audio podcast. Please, guys, if you like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more content on there if you're already a subscriber, and a better way for us to get you guys some more stuff. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Check out our links down below to get a hold of us and to actually find out more places where you can get more information about this. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at HBPRNA. Remember, all these cases that we discuss and all the discussions that we have are through the lenses of what we call human behavior, pattern recognition, and analysis. So please like it, share it, tell your friends about it, and we hope you enjoy the show. Thanks.
The great thing is Greta Thunberg is spinning at the playground this morning just for you bringing that up, because to me it's ridiculous, but I understand the logic behind it.
Okay. Of why
of
people...
flat earthers.
Yeah. You want to get into that?
Yeah, I mean,
I like your...
You clearly like that.
Your two stories. No, but your stories that you just brought up on the dichotomous news stories.
Yep.
That's exactly. And then what they do is they go, well, which one did people click on more? Okay, they clicked on the he is guilty one, or he did do it. Then let's just start running more stories about that. You see what I'm saying?
But there's no logic behind that.
No.
Let me start with this. And anybody out there that wants to invest in Arcadia, please contact Brian, because first of all, there's a female on LinkedIn that's got really good advice every once in a while. And I'm not going to say her name because I'll butcher it, and I want to make sure I get it right for a future broadcast. Oh, and by the way, Cy Sperling, Hair Club for Men, died.
Get out of here! No way! Yeah. Oh man,
icon, cultural icon. Everybody knows him.
Everyone knows that because he's
Martin Woolley, sell the stock.
He's.
But the
he wasn't just the owner; he was also a client. That was,
and he was a wonderful guy too.
Yeah,
he was a fun guy to be around.
I liked his commercials.
Exactly. I wanted to be in that pool. You never had to clean that pool. There was no filter, hair full of, you know what I'm saying? No, not even leaves. So this female on LinkedIn has this good, simple advice, and I'm scrolling through just looking for stuff that has to do with what we do, And all of a sudden it comes up and it says, the first one was like a week ago, and it said like, do you berate your coworkers, and is it a give and take, or is it all transmit? And I go, holy crap,
yeah,
it's me. So I wrote down, and I wrote Brian, and some guy from Pakistan goes, who's Brian? Because I was like apologizing to you, like because I'm thinking like that everybody reads it, because I'm not that bright. Yeah. And so this week it was another one, and it was like, do you ask the opinion of somebody, or you dictate, dictatorial style or something? And I go, oh, here we're back to Brian again. So the funny thing is that I think about the internet being different, like it's this, like it has this social conscious that it can read other things and put things together, which is so far from the truth. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's just an algorithm. It's just a mathematical formula, right?
So that's the point of it, right? So it is a mathematical formula. So it's not it's much more rigid than actual human thought and behavior, but it's getting right.
Certainly.
So that's what they're trying to do. But that's the point behind it, is like, oh, you interacted with this. Let me show you that. Because based on what everyone else is doing is where usually with us, it's weird, because that's why, like, if you pull up my Netflix feed, what it recommends, it's all over the place. Because like, I want to beat the algorithm. Like I picture the algorithm as a person. Go, Jesus, man, like, did you see this guy? He is all, what do we send him? I don't know. Like, because his stuff is everywhere.
Exactly. But now listen, imagine mine. Okay. Because you know me, you've known me for a good long time. So for yesterday's instructor development that I pushed out, I could not remember who was murdered in June in Germany that was part of Merkel's Progressive Party, and that was a neo-Nazi, ultra right-wing faction and sympathizers. So can you imagine that, first of all, if I ever look like for Shelley, getting a pair of socks for her birthday, okay, the next thing is, hey, socks near you in Gunnison, Colorado, socks for sale. You know how your computer search engine, if you're on the internet, it's coming up with all of those. Well, because I did neo-Nazis in Gunnison. Hey, the Black, the Black Panther movement near you. So I can imagine the vans circling around Denver, waiting for somebody to land. Go, yeah, we're headed to Gunnison now, sir, because there's no rhyme or reason to it, and I do it simply for research. Well, I don't think an algorithm can catch up to that. Do you?
That stuff is kind of it's just an ongoing process. All that stuff is a complete ongoing process of how things work and where it leads you to. And now they're trying to affect that so that it doesn't keep showing you the same stuff, because that's where people do like, because since we're getting into flat earthers today, where you go down that self radicalization, like on YouTube, it's like you watch someone who's way out there on far right or far left, and then you watch that and it'll recommend other videos or articles in that go along with that, or that other people who watch that video also watch. So you can go down a rabbit hole. You can literally go down a rabbit hole.
So when I was telling you about the investors, my thing is this. I believe, and I think that you and I could do a study on this, and it goes along with the topic of being online and searching for different stuff. When you get news, the way news is broadcast today, whether it's on a television, on a Hulu, a Yulu, or whatever the hell you do, or on an article, I would make the proposition, I would challenge everybody that your heart and your physiology change the same way that when you watch a horror movie. So when it's bad news, the way that they've learned, just like from advertising, to get you to get that emotional. I'm a little bit.
That's.
Oh my gosh! And they're even saying stuff like, "Look at your screen. Look at what's happening right now."
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair. But I think humans need to know that. I think that if you tune in, you need to know that you're going to go through physiological changes.
Yes, and you can continue those physiological changes, right? So that if you're constantly searching for that, you're going to constantly find it. It's just like anybody that happens to researchers, right? Hey, if I constantly try to look for things that reinforce my hypothesis or my theory, what am I going to find? I'm only going to find things that reinforce it. I'm never going to look at the opposite or what it couldn't be or what I'm missing. But that's but that we have to make it theatrical, make it exciting to get those viewers, and the news started doing that a long time ago with everything was breaking news.
But
right?
Now it's even worse because it's got a phone is a journalist.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that you're not going to believe this. Oh my God, you're going to want to stick around to this next segment because that's not delivering the news. Hey,
that's clickbait.
So today, that's why I used to love listen. I used to. I mean, I was a kid and getting a ride to high school, to the first high school I went to. That didn't work out for me. But they would.
I'm just amazed that you know that there is a high school.
The neighbor would
listen
to like the news on NPR, and they would deliver that flat line. Today, bus rolls over and kills 37 children in Lahore, Pakistan, and you're like, oh my God, that's terrible. But they just deliver it in that monotone, So it lets you react to whatever the situation is. It lets you decide what your emotional register is going to be versus just forcing you it. But this goes into another, we talked a little bit there about confirmation bias, but this is flat earthers, right? So one of the top ranked Google searches of, I was looking at, if anyone's listening, go on to Google Trends. You can find out all kinds of cool stuff about what people in the U.S. or the whole world are Googling and where it ranks.
A place I will never go.
Yeah. So it's, but you can put in all these different parameters and use the data and make it little charts out of them. It's really, really cool stuff. But what you find on there, so one of the things I wrote was like, why do people, and then you just see what comes up, right?
That's funny.
And one of the top ones was, why do people think the earth is flat?
Right.
So that was a very high ranked Google search, right? In this trending over the last few years or whatever it is. So it took me back to immediately this. I know the answer. Well, a general idea about the answer is, is this Netflix did a documentary about these flat earthers, and all you need to do, I forget the name of it. I got to figure it out. I got to remember to look it up again. You just got to watch the first 7 minutes because they interview and talk to the whole documentary.
I'm looking that up now, so you know.
Is about this guy who's like the head guy in the flat earth movement, right? He's like their guy. And, it's hilarious because they're having a conversation and he's going, well, how did you stumble on this? Or what did you come across? Or what made you get into this? And he goes, well, I was looking into a number of things. I was looking into some of the conspiracies at Area 51, the JFK assassination. And he went down like every possible conspiracy. And you're like, okay, that's all you need to know about that. That's all you need to know about this guy. He was looking for a conspiracy to believe in. He wanted to go something that was on the fringe, and then he found it, and then he ran with it. And it was just hilarious. That's all you need. You need the first 7 minutes of the documentary, and now you get it, because that's human behavior. So I would ask you, Greg, is why do people think the earth is flat?
Okay, so can I tell you
a loaded
this?
question, though.
It is a loaded question, and Marin, I'm used to it. I'm used to saying, "Hey, podcast today to talk about the school bus safety in Irvine, California," and I tune in and get this shit.
Yeah,
so, but it's great. Okay, so here, let me tell you a story. Can I tell a story about teacher?
Please do.
Teacher, call sign teacher. We get on a plane and we got to fly to a place in New Mexico. Then we got to pick up a sled and drive for hours through the night to another place in New Mexico. So we do this training gig for these people that are going elsewhere, and then on the way back, you know exactly where it is. But the people that know. And so on the way back, we are driving, and we're both dead tired because it was a embed, and we were exhausted. So we're both coming back, and Teach looks and goes, "Hey, we're right next to that Area 51, that museum, all that other stuff. It's like
Roswell.
Drive to Roswell, New Mexico." And I go, "What's Roswell?" Like, because I'm the village idiot, but I get the most death threats, folks. Listen up. I get the most death threats when I say there is no Bigfoot and that there are no UFOs. There are people that are willing to kill me. Sometimes it's the hat. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I go, Teach. It's like 6:30 in the morning. So we go to a place across the street that's the Alien Inn or something, coffee house. We wait till the place opens and we go over, and there's a doctor there, a no crap doctor. And he goes, "Hey, welcome. What are your interests?" And I'm like, "Hey, you're already asking too many questions." You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm paying my $9 to see this crappy museum. First of all, folks, it's an amazing museum.
Yeah.
Second of all, the little town was wonderful and the people are great. So we go through, and it takes us, I'm guessing, Brian, 2.5 hours to get through the entire museum, and they're showing Leonard Nimoy used to do a series called In Search Of. And my thing from even being a little kid was, if you're asking questions to your audience, that's the problem. So they go, "Could this be the lost, whatever like that?" And then the next thing is, "Could this be a piece of the fabric from the actual ship that..." Listen, if you're not asking me a bunch of questions. You get what I'm trying to say? And so this is the entire thing, and they've got a library, and they got pictures, and they got the boot that the guy wore. They found the weather balloon, right? All of that stuff to the very end. And the last thing before you exit is this thing on our aliens among us, and if they are, what they look like. And there was this graph that showed from the big-headed aliens to what is that one? Abductions of the third kind or whatever aliens, all the way to alligator people aliens that are seen in Florida, and then the Bigfoot. So Bigfoot, they made the ipso facto, if then, Bigfoot is an alien, right? So I'm thinking about $6 Million Man. When I was growing up, there was an episode where Bigfoot was a robot that helped do the $6 Million Man. For all our listeners that are over like 90, you'll get that. But the idea was that the very last thing it says, "Hey, this film was a fake. This was a piece of mylar from a weather balloon. And this is a plaque that's eye level on the door as you hit the exit to go out. Everything that you just spent the last 2.5 hours seeing has been explained by science." But it's the smallest part of the entire thing. And by the time you get there, I was buying the Wookiee hat. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I bought the gosh damn coffee mug that looked like a flying saucer. When we can't explain things, what we want to do is we want to look for an explanation. Listen, I had a good ride on my horse, and my horse didn't kill me. Shelley and I owned the Powderhorn Ranch for 13 years. And so we had people that were great riders, people that weren't great riders. And we'd take them out on a horse, and we'd match. And Shelley's a genius to matching horse personalities to humans, right? But we're talking about anthropomorphism here. The person would come back that was scared to death. And I'll tell you this, folks, if you're ever going to take your kid out for a ride, go up to the horse, and people would push their kids at us and get them on a horse, get them on a horse. Do you know how much a horse weighs? Do you know how big a horse is? Kneel in front of a horse and look up. That's what your kid sees.
Exactly.
So we have to de-escalate this because the kid's going, and the parents are like, So we'd come back from the ride and go, how was your ride on Troy? How was that ride? And they'd go, "Oh, it was amazing. It was like the horse knew my every move." You think the horse knew their every move, or do you think the horse was being a horse? The idea is the horse was being a horse, but you attributed certain facts to those things to be able to have a story you could tell. Like for example,
it's sort of to make sense of it, right?
Yeah, order out of cast. What's the most common thing that you hear when a person says, "Hey, a tornado is coming"? What do they always equate it to, Brian? They say it sounds like a train. Okay. So what is that? That's the part of your brain that looks for file folders and says, if, then. So this is close to this, and therefore now that becomes my new reality. Now, whether it sounds like that or not, it doesn't matter, because to the human, and then the first human says that, and the second one goes, "Hey, Jim, when he was talking about that in Iowa, do you see what I'm trying to say?" And it becomes an urban myth, an urban legend that is greater than the sum of all the parts.
So that, you brought up we want to look for an explanation. And so you do, like, and this goes into, like, if you've never really like done good like research before, right? You're not always going to find the answer, right? And you have to be comfortable not knowing everything and being able to say, this is what I can prove, because so many of these have a
what do you know?
Yeah.
What can you prove? You're exactly right. Great point, Brian.
That's the thing, is that, so why do we jump to that? All right, so if I can't understand it and go, hey, look, I don't know, my simple brain says I don't understand how this thing got here, why do people then jump to, well, it's got to be from outer space? Like,
Brian,
why don't we go down a practical route of let's see what how do we make the puzzle piece fit before we go get a different puzzle? You know what I'm saying? Like, why do we do that?
Do you know what the Fibonacci sequence is, Brian? This is the part. This is the part for our viewers that I want it up on the screen so they can refer to it for what I'm about to say.
Go on and explain that, please.
Go on.
Because
no, that's how you got to do it.
Because
so here's the thing.
I know you're bringing that up just so I brought it up randomly. I think I was having a stroke at the time because I was trying to think of whatever I was trying to think of.
You were speaking in tongues, and all of a sudden,
there's a Fibonacci sequence. I was thinking of some other algorithm.
People were clapping,
and people were,
it's like Lois going 9-1, and then the other person said 9-11. No, Brian. So the idea is this, okay? Egregiously insane connections come into your brain when your brain ends up on an empty Rolodex file folder. So I want you to think of the Rolodex, the old time thing that would go around, and there were index cards on it, and you could come to it to look for cockroach cleaning, carpet, whatever. I'm hooked on a letter C according to my brain now. But when you come up on a novel experience, and remember how your brain takes things, that all of a sudden there's all this imagery that's coming in, and you have a smell and a scent, and now it's trying to formulate it. If it goes to a file and it doesn't have one for the file, then that's extraordinary. That's unusual. That's novel. And so your brain has one of two choices. Either it's a fact, a bona fide thing, and you absolutely understand it, or it's this mythological beast that showed up and, came. One, if you're watching television, don't ever watch it. Well, I'm going to get bad letters about that. There's these shows out there about what do you call them? The parapsychologists and all these people put together these things, and they do interviews, and they have this guy, this shirtless Russian guy, no, not Putin, the younger guy, and he's laying on a couch and he's talking to his phone. This is his interview about something that he saw that was earth-shattering. Remember, it's so important to him that he's got to post it, but he couldn't even put a shirt on. And he's talking about this gnome-like woman that came out of the woods when he and his horse were taking turnips to the barn. Okay, so the whole thing was grainy, crappy, and the photographs moving around. All lies. You will fixate. Your visual field is the entire back of your head. You will orient. You will lock onto this thing because you got to go friend or foe. You got to go, am I going to fight this thing? Am I going to eat it? Am I going to make love to it? You get what I'm trying to say? So you're going through all of these categories, and you will never forget it. Why? Because it's so novel. And you're likely to go off the map trying to explain it because you don't have a rational explanation. So what's the opposite of rational? Irrational. When we're talking about a congruent signal, we talk about incongruent signals a lot, but we never talk about a congruent signal because they're normal. So normalized stuff goes by the wayside, but these novel things go way over.
So if that happens and like I immediately jump to, okay, this is a Bigfoot or a garden gnome or something, is that you say if I don't have a file folder for that, but I feel like maybe you can have corrupt file folders implanted, right? So because everything your brain takes in, a lot of times it doesn't understand the difference between reality and fiction, right? So if you're watching
many times,
so exactly meaning you could watch a movie and you're basically implanting file folders. So your brain doesn't understand something, it will go to a memory or a scene or a sound bite that may have been completely fictional, right? I mean, and it'll implant it. Is that what you're saying? Like it can take
Brian, I saw a Marine run from a roof. We were doing top down, bottom up house clearing. It was a very kinetic environment. And I saw a Marine, and I think it was what did you guys have back there? The 240, because it was swinging from his neck, and he had extra ammo and everything. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so 249, you're exactly right. M249. So he's running for the end of the building, and he took a dive off the building and fell what would be 2 stories. So that's 20 some feet, I would guess. I am no math magician. and almost died, and the other Marine was ready to pick up and jump that building again. And I'm stymied. I'm like, whoa, what's going on?
Was he?
Going, no, don't worry, I can do it. I just want to get an extra run.
Or?
Yeah. What it is we were going in the bottom of one building, clearing the house, then from the roof going to the other roof, and these were further apart than any of the other ones. And so the idea was that these Marines had this super imposed image that, listen, I can do this. That's not that far away. And now you've got the adrenaline, and you've got the, hey, combat, my life or death may hang in the balance. And now I got my buddies. I don't want to disappoint these Marines around me. So this chemical cocktail is going through your brain, and you believe you can do things. Now, you've heard of things where a person lifted a piano off an armadillo, or somebody moved the bumper of a car from a baby or whatever else. It's the same type of thing. One, most of those are lies. Two, that extraordinary burst of energy and strength never happened. It was some other thing that happened to shift that car. But we believe them. And why do we believe them? Because we have to have something to fill that space. We don't know what happened. The startle effect was there. We know that there was an effect, but we're not sure of the cause. And so therefore we have to create something that's at least realistic enough for the cause. Now, listen, I've never read anything about these flat earthers, but I can tell you how that starts. So if I came up to you and I said, listen, the reason that planes fly in an arc when you see a globe is because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So having a parabola doesn't make any sense. And the reason is that the Earth is flat. It's actually a square. And that, jives with wide space and stars. And if you turn it in this way, and you know what? If you do a good thing and you've got a band behind you and you've got an intro, and now this guy coming in, you're going to have a dozen people in that audience believe you. Yeah. And those people want to send you money. And now you've got somebody in Hollywood going, holy crap, we should do a 20-minute show on this, and 10 minutes of commercials. I'm not saying it's fraudulent, Brian. I'm saying that there's gaps in our brain. And when we process information, it's just as likely we're going to take an unreasonable approach to it as we're going to take a reasonable approach. And the more brightly colored and flashy and crazy, the easier it is to remember. Novel things are easy to remember.
So if that's the case, right? Because you brought up, it's funny because you brought up the Area 51 Roswell. I think it was on the X-Files. Didn't they always say that people want to believe or something? That was like their saying in the show.
Their tagline.
But then why is it then when they come to that, why do we or anyone then resist any other contradictory information?
Oh, okay.
Right?
So that's a good question.
And to the point where it's not even I won't even listen to it, or you won't even entertain something, or to why do we just automatically just tune out any information that contradicts our thoughts?
One, we use terms like hero and expert and those type of things, just colloquially way too much. Okay, and a great friend of Archilochus back in the day, very old and very Greek, said, if everybody's a hero, nobody's a hero. Yeah. And I want our folks to remember that, because the more you use that, the more you try to define. So then I'll take something that happened in the East. I'm thinking like by the Chappaquiddick, Lake Chappaquiddick, which is already famous for that Chappie, which is the Loch Ness monster that comes up in the lake. And some guy had a video from the shoe phone. Yeah. So Loch Ness, but in Chappaquiddick, it's Chappie. They actually have one, right?
Oh, I didn't know they had an American counterpart, an American cousin.
God, they do. Look up Chappie. There's our next podcast. People call in now, send us your photos. But listen, Brian, this guy was out and he took a photo, and here was this serpentine creature swimming in the water. So what he did is he controlled the perspective of his shoe phone video. Sent it in and said this creature was moving, and there's waves and everything else. And now you don't know scale. So it looks amazingly huge, and it's moving upriver right towards the camera. The guys that debunked him, the item was still there. There's a twig, and the twig is hanging off a bush, and there's a piece of plastic. And the wind and the water, and it's very small, it's maybe 6 inches long, is making it writhe in the water, giving it the serpentine look. So when you saw it, and you didn't have the border, and you could determine the scale and the size, and you knew that it was an optical illusion, that you knew that it was an optical illusion isn't as good as saying it's a cognitive illusion. You
Yeah.
get what I'm trying to say? Because your brain says, well, that's close enough, and it locks onto that, and it's hard to come off of that. Why? Because I saw that zoomed in image. Now, people were shown these two videos next to each other, the actual and the other one, and they said it's a cover-up. There's actually that snake, but the government came in and they tried to cover it up. Famous one in Russia. People are found, their faces were ripped off and their bodies,
that
and
was
it was back in the 50s, and it was that
landslide avalanche. Yeah.
And so all of the damage was consistent. Every single rational person that looked at it. But again, you've got different values in different parts of the country,
so that
different intellect levels, different news media personalities that you trust or you don't.
But
they all feed into it.
Yeah, right. They feed into confirmation bias, and we only want to believe what we want to believe. But you brought up,
tend to look for those pieces of evidence that only support our story. That's a big part of it too, Brian, because we don't want to consider your answer. We want to say, well, all of this information tends to show that I'm correct, and that's our ego system too.
Right, and that goes into, people, false convictions on crimes, whether
confessions, you were about to say it. Both of those are parallel.
But more so just false conviction, even without someone confessing and not looking at outside evidence. But that goes into the media does that to people. We as a society do that to people. We jump on it and
coppers do that to people
without seeing the full picture. But you brought in, I just want to break to the term you said is because it was a literal perspective of video, but perspective is a big one.
Yes.
And people talk about it, and there's even, I saw a great one, actually another one on LinkedIn yesterday, your buddy Gary Klein responded to.
Klein's a genius anyway.
Well, because someone said, hey, we did this meta-analysis, this study, and we talk about taking other people's perspective in this, and they were saying, hey, that's actually not, these researchers saying, well, it's like, well, that's actually not really a useful tool. And Klein got on there and was like, well, hang on a minute, you're not looking at the problem. So it's interesting how those things go back and forth. And we do have those platitudes, but it's a lot about perspective, and our perspective can lead to that bias, right? And
So no, you're right on. And I think anybody listening to Brian right now, if you're at home, jot down on your yellow pad, forced perspective, because Brian was talking about forced perspective from your perspective, and then biased people telling you information that might not have scientific scrutiny behind it. But I'm telling you also that visually, because your visual field is such a large part of how you process
very things. Small. Too.
Has anybody seen a postcard where somebody was holding up the Leaning Tower of Pisa? Has anybody seen a postcard where, well, what did they do? Some of the greatest filmmakers of all time used forced perspective. You have an object that's way in the back, an object that's close. Those happen all the time. As a matter of fact, there was a ghost town that I went to, and I must have seen 10 museums in the ghost town.
Calico?
I've had experiences. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And when you're going through there, all of the photos that they show of the ghost are a problem with one of two things.
Yeah.
Camera or the film. Okay. Then I would add lighting, and I would see the final thing, perspective. And the fourth thing is, if anybody's got to hold something up to you and go, look back there, look by the drapes, and look right in here. Now, what do you see there? If somebody's doing that to you, you're getting a huckster, you're getting a con man, because they think they see it, and now they're trying to get you on board. If it was the thing, do you think you'd see it? Do you think if there was a ghost and a ghost came into your house, you would experience it? Now I'm in Rogue Manor West, which is partially haunted, and there's Gimbal, who will make himself known every once in a while, but I'm not sitting there going down to Lanny, my neighbor, and going, Lanny, you got to come up and see this. The vertical book stacking incident. The idea is that when we can't explain something, we create something. So a novel thing happened in the house. It's recurred a couple of times, and now it's Gimbal, the ghost of Christmas Path. And guess what? We know when the house was built, and we know all the people that lived there. And I've done the interviews with everybody that did all the construction here, and there's nothing there. So guess what? The only place it could have started is here, right. And the only person that can keep it alive is me. So I get Shelly to buy into it, and she goes, "What's up?" And I go, "I saw something out of my periph. It's got to be Gimbal." Well, you see the amount of lighting that's in the room, and so the slightest thing, a bird flying by, snow falling off the roof, anything else, that makes something I have to account for. So now I have to attend to that item, and my brain doesn't want to burn calories because my brain's already come to the decision it's not dangerous. How do I know it's not dangerous? I didn't orient. My catecholamine group didn't start pumping out. You get what I'm trying to say? So the idea is that those things would have been triggers that it's real. And now your answer is going to be, but when I was in the woods, I got scared because I heard a sound I hadn't heard before.
Or
so what happened is
mm-hmm.
now your sensory system opened up, and what do you think happens when my sensory system opens up? Things get bigger, time goes slower, and now my imagination picks, well, perfect way, you're going to pick that bear and turn it into a Bigfoot. The worst call on the street is a copper, and I only was a copper just under 30 years, folks, so I don't know much. But I'll tell you this, unknown trouble. You get a call, unknown trouble. Okay, on the way to the unknown trouble, whoop, 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 you know, you're going through traffic and everything else. You're going, baby with machete has killed mother. You're going, paratrooping, you know what I'm trying to say, machine gunner at local high school. You don't know what's going on, so do-do-do-do. And you got the Jeopardy theme playing in the background, and you're ramping up, and you get there, and it's, a guy backed over himself. Had one of those. A guy was an Avon Avon man that was going up the door. The kid was in the car. Kid stood on the steering wheel and was holding it while the guy left the car running. Somehow the kid put the pernal into and as it was backing up, he tried to jump out and pinned himself under the car. So you think truth is always stranger than fiction.
It
Brian.
is.
So what I'm trying to say? But I'm on the way to that call, and this was the guy's call on 911. So dispatch sends it out as, okay, we need, this and that. Well, guess what happens? Those gaps, those fractures have to be filled in. And it doesn't mean that your brain is going to grab like instances or things you've seen. And you said it. If you read a lot of comic books, part of that's going to be comic. If you see a lot of action movies, a lot of it's going to be action stuff. Have you ever had a friend that spends a little too much time on the blue sites on the internet? And every time you go to Denny's, he goes, hey, that waitress is making eye contact with me. No, she's not. Right. You get what I'm trying to say? Are you mean the one with the lazy eye? You see what I'm saying? You can turn that misinformation or the lack of credible information or just a lack of total information, you can turn that into something.
Well, then how do so how do I counter that? Because to me, because I bash on flat earthers because it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I love it, actually. Now I'm resolved to look it up.
Yeah, maybe not the dumbest thing I've ever heard, but certainly one of them.
Not today.
And the great lengths that they go through to say, hey, this is a legitimate way to look at the world. But anyway, and I go to that, but I bash on them knowing that we all are a flat earther in a way, right? With our own thoughts or beliefs, right? We can all do that. It can happen to all of us. So, because you brought up a great one about truth being stranger than fiction. It is. I mean, ask people that have traveled, even just traveled around, been around the world. They're like, look, man, I've seen some weird, crazy stuff that happens, and there's a logical explanation, and it's always more. It's always crazier than the Stephen King novel. Actually, a lot of times, you know what I'm saying? Like when you see what happens in real life, that's where those stories come from. But how do I counter that, right? How do I counter that effect of falling into that trap, of going down that rabbit hole, of only looking at my own beliefs or reconfirming what my already suspicions were? How do I counter that? What's the way to balance that in my everyday life?
Let me throw this out. Let me throw out something that we talk about in terms of self-defense and situation awareness and human behavior pattern recognition analysis a lot, but we don't really go into much detail in it in this type of analysis. If you think of the gift of time and distance, it will make you safer because you're going to make better critical thinking decisions at precise moments. So very simple. Hold out your hand, try to cover the incident with your thumb. Remo's rule of thumb says that if you can cover the entire car on a traffic stop, people in a market, anything else, then or the chemical spill, you're going to give yourself enough time to analyze that and go, it looks like this, and I think it's this, but what else could it be? Now, I'm not saying that you have to create an explanatory storyline in the heat of battle. I'm talking about in situations where you have time, like many of these that we're talking about, the Ghost and Mr. Chicken, the organ upstairs is playing in the haunted house.
Yeah.
If you slow time down, and if you take a look at it, there's likely a rational explanation. And I'll give you one, and it's always about stuff that scares us to our core, and it goes back to life and death decisions. So I'm a supervisor on the road, and I get a call, and it's an old Italian family, and I go there, and there's candles up all over the house, and it's like 2 a.m, and the great-grandmother died, and it's a horrific event, and everybody's crying, everybody's wearing black, and she's been there all day this is now the time they've called. So we have to make sure that there's no signs of foul play. Then the coroner comes, then other things like the funeral home. So I go, and it's a very small bedroom in the north part of our town, and not here, back in Michigan, doesn't matter, I guess. And then walked in, sat down, and so I do a couple of things that I do at a potential crime scene, and there's no indices that there's anything other than this poor old woman passed. Do a couple of interviews of the people. They're all broken up. They say the things, take a couple of photos so I can, remember it if I have to testify later. And I go back in the room and I'm catching up on my log, waiting for the coroner to show up. We're going to jive and then call for the folks, the funeral home. As I'm there, the female continues to move. Now, here we've got a mid-90s female. She's laying on a bed. They've got her covered up to the waist with the heaviest blankets, because she's a frail little thing, the wonderful woman. And she's got her hands crossed on her stomach. They've got candles in the room, and she's laying back with her eyes closed. So first the one hand moves. Okay, then both hands move. Now both hands move down to her sides, and then all of a sudden onto the bed. And I'm sitting there, and I'm going, okay, what's the first thing? And I want to ask you, first thing is, I'm getting pumped. What an elaborate set that they got all of these people in this room to buy into it, pick the house, and all my other fellow coppers are in on it, and I'm being filmed right now. So what I'm trying to do is hold it together, because inside I'm going, should I stay or should I go? First of all, do I have to shoot a demon? Because all the goddamn vampire movies I saw, this poor woman is now becoming this thing where I'm seeing, and all of a sudden I can see the bed move, and she's moving, and the clothes is moving. So I get up and I look around and I go, this is the most ridiculous thing. I walk out. I have to give myself the gift of time and distance. I have to change my perspective. So I go up to the one person that's standing closest to the door, watching my every move, thinking I'm going to look for these signs. And I said, hey, what gives? And he goes, oh, you know what? We've been giving her bicarbonate of soda all day long because she has dyspepsia. She said that her stomach was bothering her. So when I go back in the room, I watch for just a minute, and her stomach is expanding. She's dead. And as she's deceased, her stomach acid and the gases in her body are building.
It's still
reacting. Her mouth is closed. Everything is closed. And what's happening is her stomach isn't expanding. And guess what? That caused her hands to move, then fall down to her sides. That caused her clothing to move and the bed sheets to move. But Brian, here, she was coming back to life, and it was a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
You're doing I knew it. I got to put another one in.
Shivers.
Even when you think they're dead, you're supposed to shoot them again.
I'm getting shivers thinking about that story, because in that small room, as quiet as it was, and nobody but crying, and the candle smell and everything else, I still, to this day, and that memory's 35 years old now, I still to this day can feel that and feel sorry for what I thought about that woman, because I was going to put two to the head and one to the chest. And Brian, I'm telling you,
I think that
life is full of experiences.
Whatever.
Mine, to poke out my own eyes, so I didn't have to see it. That's an irrational thought. But you get my idea. Is that sometimes we see things and our brain makes comparisons because it doesn't have the experience to draw on the scientific answer. I would tell you to wait just nanoseconds to a few seconds and consider alternative hypotheses, because one of them is probably much more likely. And I would also say that sometimes people do have fun. There are people that are members of your Flat Earth Society because they want to call another person an asshole, and this is the way to do it.
Yeah,
there are people that just are having fun, and it's a group to join.
Yeah.
But there are people
they have an amazing, retreat every quarter where they go to Tampa.
But there are those people
that
are believers.
But okay, all right. So one, we talked about our feeling or need to explain things, right? And sometimes we go to the absurd, and we'll implant those file folders and go, oh my God.
We'll rush to an unreasonable conclusion. Okay. You're exactly right.
Okay, so then if we have a tendency where people can do that or fall into that, well, why do then we still have a hard time? Because you sent me an article earlier this week of the two, they were off-duty police officers sitting in a diner eating, and a guy walked in with a gun and a mask and started robbing the place, and then it still took him a minute to go. So why do we then do that?
So here you got two coppers. First of all, what you got to do is you got to put a scale somewhere.
Because this is the opposite end of it, right? Where
we're talking the Raising Cain scenario, folks. There's a restaurant called Raising Cain, and there's two married coppers that are off duty having a dinner at Raising Cain. Guy comes in, guy's wearing gloves, guy's wearing one of those masks that you wear because of the coronavirus, and walks straight up to the counter. And guess what, Brian? The reason I'm saying having a scale, making sure that we look at it through a perspective lens, not a straw. is that nobody but the robber and the counter person were cued in at that point. Now,
Right.
you had two coppers that weren't very close, but they saw what was going on, and they were ahead of everybody else. They had more on the bump.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say? And both of them were trying to talk themselves out of it. And I guarantee the conversation went like this: "Oh, this ain't happening. Oh, this guy ain't robbing the place." That's what we do. So anybody with experience, and you would have done that same thing.
I've been
you
in those
sat there and
situations
said,
like, no,
there's no way. Because the next thing that's going to happen, if this is a robbery, is that guy's going to do this. And there go the hands. Well, I'll be a son. Now you're talking across the counter. And Shelley and I would do this all the time. We did as many felonies off duty as we did on duty captures. I'd be going, okay, so you're going to follow them because they're not going to expect a woman. I'm going to call 911, and I'm going to tell the counter person not to touch anything. So, Shell, when you go out, are you going to go right or left? Well, it depends on him. Yeah, I got it. But are you going to go right or left? I'll go right. I'll go left. Okay, so if I say Mr. Jones really loud, that means you kneel down. We had this whole running dialogue going on, and we would think afterwards that it took 15 minutes. Guess how long that takes? Boom. Because you have a plan. So here's the one good thing. Shout out to those coppers. They did have a plan.
Yeah.
Here's the bad thing about that situation. It took till this and all that other stuff. Why? Because denial. Denial comes into your brain and says, I don't want to burn any calories on this situation unless it's absolutely dangerous to me. Why? Because we've evolved past the saber-toothed tiger biting your neighbor on the head and dragging him into a cave. So evolution has actually de-evolved our ability to sense danger and to say that's enough. You got to draw a line in the sand, Brian, and you got to say at this point, it's likely that this is a robbery and it's a robbery in progress. So now we're going to split up and take different points. Look, I love they didn't contact the guy in the store. But I'm not sure I love the fact that they chased him down outside in the dark in civilian clothes. I mean,
that's good, rushing into tactical patience and everything we talk about. But that's so. Is it a form? Would you call it? Would it be fair to articulate it almost as a form of denial on both sides, right? Meaning, okay, this must be Bigfoot. I can't see any other explanation. But where now, this was an example I brought up. But how many people in that restaurant didn't notice it? Never thought, well, it must just be this. It must
read
just be
the article the next day.
But that's the other thing.
Wait a minute, I was there that day.
So some people go to the extreme, meaning, well, it must be something completely absurd or extraordinary.
Yep.
But then other people go to the, no, it must just be what it seems. That person's only wearing that mask because they're sick. You get what I'm saying? It's almost like
you see something. You see something strange in everything. You're always, you're hyper alert to it.
So it's like,
okay.
So you have to, you got why is it that is it a form of denial on either side?
Yes,
right?
yes. But let's make sure we define that further. So let's go back to your Fibonacci sequence. There's a thing, and I don't know the name of it, and folks are going to hate me because if you look it up online, you'll be able to find it in just a minute. But I'm not online other than doing podcasts and stuff. There's a thing where if you take, and it's a scientific fact, if you take all the number of stars that are likely in our universe, and if you expand that and you look out and you say, this is a amount of life that's here, you will come to a thing saying, well, there's probably life on this many planets elsewhere, right?
Or statistically speaking, there has to be some form of life somewhere else, right?
So that's in column one.
Due to the sheer number of galaxies.
Precisely.
Right? Okay.
So put that study in number one. Now, number two is they use the term unidentified flying objects, and now there's a new one.
There's a new
unidentified underwater objects or whatever.
Man, there's a couple they call it something else now.
But in Lake Granby in Colorado, there's an entire UFO city that's down below there. That's one of the things that's happening. You get what I'm trying to say, and it's there to make money to come and go, hey, is this where the UFOs start from? Yeah, nothing that there's an air base down the road, right? And they're testing stuff. But the idea is that same logic that got us to number one, the unidentified flying objects, there's a statistician out there, and the statistician says, listen, out of all of these things, this number, 170,000 reports of flying saucers, we were able to say 135,000 of them were definitely airplanes. We were able to say that 25,000 of those were weather balloons, 10,000 were swamp gas brought on by, excess cow methane and barometric pressure, but we can't account for 1,311 of those.
Well, Greg, it's got to be.
But but you get what I'm saying. It's my head, okay? But the idea is, again, graph that out in your own brain. I don't give a damn what the numbers are. But the idea is, at the end of the day, Brian, those ones that are unaccounted for, that person goes, there you go. That's my proof. My proof is that you couldn't explain it. So just as logically to them that there's got to be some plant and ice with liquid water that has amoebic life, and that could form. Just as likely as that is the fact that you can't disprove the fact that these are unidentified. And that's what they rest their hat on, Brian. And you're going to get people that do that. Listen, when I had to come to Colorado, and Colorado's different than Detroit, I know it doesn't seem as though it is, and I had to come from mainstream Colorado to the middle of nowhere Colorado, and I got to meet some people that there's whirling disease and chronic wasting disease. So sometimes I would have to go back to a ranch or a farm that had been there since the mid 1800s,
Yeah.
and talk to somebody about it. And they had a different way of explaining a lot of the things that were happening, Brian. And it's like putting a mustard plaster on that. You'll straighten right out. Here, put some tobacco on it. And
Yeah.
those things are still out there. And in the information age, because we're bombarded with the thought of these other things, sometimes we pick one. And I'm telling you, the brain will race to an unreasonable conclusion just because it's got to make order out of chaos and can't move forward without doing that. So filling that blank file folder is essential to humans. And so therefore, whatever's handy, even this egregiously wrong scenario with the Bigfoot, is going to fit that file folder. And guess what? I'll come back to it. You ever see this thing with the repressed memories? There's a whole movie about it where the people went to Alaska and everyone got probed.
Yeah.
How much is in a human ass that all of these people had this joint probing? Do you get what I'm trying to say? And I know I've got some experience, but my
yours
point
is relatively new.
3 years. But I want you to think about that for a minute. If we were talking about
what is up there that's so important to alien cultures,
it has something to do with time travel, I'm sure. Do you get what I'm saying? But Brian, that's what I'm telling you. Is I'm saying be suspicious when there's no fact-based data set to follow it up. Be suspicious when people are asking questions and trying to point to what you should believe out of an argument. If an argument, I go to math. I can go to Germany, I can go to Japan, and talk mathematics. Clearly not my number sets,
no.
But the Fibonacci sequence is the same. We can go to a place and everybody understands the concept of snow or ice or fire or water. So I say stick with those common factors. It's likely that if it's something new, everybody will know it's new, and it'll be so novel that you won't get a shaky picture of it. Somebody will stand there, even if they die at the scene, to show you this thing. For example, it's novel in California, Brian, for those mudslides to take a house down, right?
Yeah.
Do or do not people stand for hours with their cameras to get that thing going down because it's so amazing to our brains. Are any of those cameras shaky footage? Think about the sinkholes, think about a dam exploding. People will stay there and wait till Godzilla steps on their head to show you that they saw something.
You get those are the same concept between all these people that are dying every year taking selfies because they're falling off a cliff or something. It's so incredibly important to what they're doing and so enthralled by it.
And none of them are shaking until the very end when they're screaming.
Well, yeah, when they're going down probably. But I mean it's interesting how we don't always we always have to use the terms likely or unlikely, even with that current project where people keep talking about intent, and we have to say, well, it's likely intent because it may be something else. So
because
you have
more factors tend to show that it's likely than others.
Yeah,
exactly.
But a lot of people don't like that, right? We want a definitive answer. I want it to be black and white. I want yes. or no. And when you have to get into it and articulate something, it's like, this is what I saw. This is what I can prove. Here's what I think is likely occurring.
Right.
Not,
Study
I know it's this.
Study physics, because physics is the closest thing to HPPRNA that you can get. And I will tell you this, Brian, and this is a great thing for anybody that was watching or listening to this episode to think about. How many times have we seen a parent on there going, my son or daughter couldn't have done this. There is no way my son is responsible for this. We all know it is. That ability to distance yourself from your own family member is emotional. It has nothing to do with science. It's chemical. It's a chemical. It's oxytocin coming in and saying, I love this person so much that I'm willing to believe all other alternatives other than the person is guilty, right?
Sue Klebold is still getting paid, going on speaking tours, talking about she never thought her son would be the one to shoot up Columbine. We did
Exactly.
this. We asked him about guns. He knew he couldn't have guns in this house, and we
It's
ran
not
a tight
him. It
ship.
was his part. So listen,
And
okay,
still doing it, still getting paid money to do it. And people are going,
but
"Oh
she
wow, this is an
believes it.
amazing talk." But people listening to her are believing it.
She would pass
She
a
knew,
lie detector test because she believes it, and
but
those
what did
people
she
are
say?
tainted.
What did she say when she heard the news reports?
We know what she said.
Hey, she said,
She said,
"I knew it was him, and I hoped he killed himself before he killed more people." Okay,
exactly.
but now you're going around saying, "Well, no, we had these rules. Look, and it's hard, and you can't know, and we weren't sure, and we had all these rules in place, and it just you're going that never." Never accepting her part of responsibility. And I know that comes into it. As humans, we don't want to accept responsibility for our actions.
And she never will. And if she watches this episode, she'll get a lawyer and she'll say this is bullshit. And she won't see the forest for the trees. So Tobias R. In a small place outside of Frankfurt, Germany yesterday, killed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And the news media wants us to believe that this quiet loner that lived in an apartment with his mother gave no signs. And Brian, I will call horse shit on that right now in every such article. Why do we do that? We do that because we can't believe that Jeffrey Dahmer lived next to us. We cannot believe that Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris spent 2 years planning Columbine right under our noses when we ate dinner with them. What you don't understand, folks, is they're not that same person in that environment. When their cup was full, they decided it was time and rage was going. But before that, they had good times. They went to a movie. They went bowling. They decided to have dinner. They didn't just, turn into this maleficent human that hated everybody, because then we would have known him. We would have said, that's the ass that lives above me. But here, this guy had pages and pages of a manifesto that were posted. He had videos of him saying why he was going to do it. He told everybody how he hated it and which countries and everything else. But guess what? Nobody put the dots together, Brian. So here, when we have evidence staring us in the face that this is the most likely person that's going to do it, and in Germany, they had 2 other such incidents in the last year that were in the same vein, we failed to want to look at it. We'll have a fire drill, Brian.
Yeah.
But we don't want to have an active shooter drill. We will pay for armor guard and armed guards, but we won't pay for a little bit of training to be able to see incongruent signals and determine danger.
No, and we'll teach a kid not to play with matches, but we won't teach him how to spot someone who's having difficulty in their social interaction with humans and not being able to fit in.
It's going to commit
and
suicide.
It's going to or lash out or lash in.
Yes, no, you're exactly right. Harm is harm, nonetheless.
And so that goes on. That's, again, I know that's on the denial phase. And we don't want to believe it, but it is so, because you brought up a number of examples of those people, and because it always brings me back to was it Elliot? Was it Kip Kinkel? Why do I keep figuring? Or Elliot Rodger with the Starbucks in photo.
No,
in
Elliot.
The photo.
Elliot, when
Rodger.
He's doing his manifesto, you remember it's in his car, and he's sitting
there. He's got the Starbucks.
Right in front of him. Right in front of him. Right.
And that's the thing. It's like you're standing in a Starbucks. That person's sitting on their laptop writing the manifesto right next to you. This is how it works. They're not. They're not going. I mean, it's difficult to detect, but not really if you're paying attention, right?
So you brought Kip Kinkel up. So Kip Kinkel had but it's important to talk about it. Kip Kinkel had folks, remember, we always assign homework. Go back and look up Kip Kinkel. But Brian, Kip helped his mom carry the groceries upstairs from her parked car, then shot her in the head with a 22 and rolled her in a blanket. Waited till Dad came home. Dad was on the phone saying, I'm at wit's end, don't know what to do with the kid, everything else. Waited till he came up the stairs, walked in the kitchen and sat down, then shot him, then went on with the date that he had planned with his friends to play video games until the next morning when he went to school to do the shooting.
Yeah.
Once you have gone down that path, and there's some bells that you can't unring. Are you telling me that his kids that were there with him didn't know a difference? They couldn't see that something was going? The idea is denial. You don't want to see it. They were there to play a game. They weren't there to talk to Kip about his last arrest. They weren't there to say, hey, where's mom and dad? Do you get what I'm trying to say? So the idea is you willfully absenting yourself from facts and knowledge is no excuse for you believing in stupid things or you acting in a stupid manner.
But that's similar to even someone who's, I've read a lot about it. I don't know how much it's, but when people decide to commit suicide, right? They're having a horrible time. Everyone knows they're depressed. They're feeling down, right? And people are trying to help them or whatever. Then all of a sudden one day they're just, hey guys, how's it going? Hey, how you doing? Happy as they're just happier than ever. Look like they're doing great because they made that decision. They have their plan and they're already going to initiate it. So don't have a care in the world, right? It's and that can happen sometimes. It's just the opposite end of that Kip Kinkel case, right? But it's that behavioral change and what's out there.
It's the incongruency. So somebody's going to tell you, hey, can you put that on a yellow pad for me? Can you laminate it so I have a check in the box? No, because humans are unique little snowflakes, and every one of us has our differences and our peccadillos and our fantasies. So in other words, don't look for the individual signals in everybody. Look for the incongruent signals in the person right in front of you.
So you brought up, and I don't remember if it was on a podcast or just when we were on the road the other week, when we talk about, you gave the Krispy Kreme donut analogy, right? So you we
were driving,
in
horrible weather,
and the base of it is that same basic donut that comes out. Then what do we do with it? Everyone's the same. Then we put sprinkles on it, or we put chocolate or vanilla frosting on it.
Or we stretch it longer, or we take just a whole, or we put it in the shelf, or we put it on there, or they're day old, and there's a special category. They all come out the same, Brian.
So my point is, with all these, we get wrapped, the media and society and all of us, we get wrapped around those details. Well, look at what sprinkles he add on them. See, that I told you, those ones are bad ones. Those aren't good, right? And it's deeper than that. That's all that gets into the politics and religion, and that's all after the fact of this baseline.
And we're finding evidence to fit a niche market rather than taking a look at just a big picture. And Brian, I will tell you the words of a great dear friend of mine, the VP of operations for Arcadia Cognerati, that says, if you find me dead in my office, please delete my browser history. So I know it's nothing to laugh about, but that's the first thing.
What a good friend would do. Delete my browser history. Yeah, I don't want the family finding out what was going on there. That wouldn't be good for anyone. Well, what a note to kind of
great gut punch there, Brian. Thank you.
Really wrap it up on there. I thought maybe you were getting the
no. You know what? We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and we all project. And we transmit our intentions. Everybody telegraphs what they're going to do before they do it. If anybody tells you they don't, they're full of beans, and they just haven't had the right amount of training. And you're not going to get it from reading a book. You're going to get it from going out and getting some in-person training and then doing the walkabout. You're going to have to go and do an urban training exercise where a mentor or a coach takes you through it and shows you how to do it. And then after a couple of times, scales fall from your eyes and you'll be able to do it on your own. Brian, those coppers that were in that gosh darn restaurant, they knew something was up and nobody else did, and they did great stuff. And that's what I'm trying to say is their training helped them figure out that the guy coming in with the gloves and the mask on probably wasn't delivering the who stole a quiche. He was probably going to rob the joint. And just that warning, Brian, gives us the gift of time and distance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that might be a good one to kind of, or a good
God only knows. I didn't know we were going to do the Flat Earth Society. They're probably going to sue us too.
They should. I mean, go for it.
Thank you. Well, they can have the jacket. I'm not wearing pants, so they can only have half of my outfit.
I don't know what they're going to get out of it, but that and there's nothing to sue us for. They're clearly in the wrong.
Point.
So don't buy into
Brian's not biased, folks. They're assholes.
Oh God, I think it's sad that we have to have that discussion.
But you're right, Brian. Come up and go. Being serious, it's just like having a lottery ticket as your retirement fund. Listen, you're going to believe a bunch of stuff, but that don't happen very often.
But if we get to sit here and accept, we don't have to accept certain principles, then anything's up for grabs, right? Then nothing matters, or anything could be made up.
Hence the browser history. That's what I'm trying to say. I was just trying to make a correlative effect there.
Thanks, appreciate that. All right.
Thanks to our listeners for being loyal. We love you,
everyone. Don't forget, training changes behavior. Okay.